What's up, everybody? So I just wanted to update you on the latest doings that I've been up to and what's next. So in the last video I mentioned that I was going to take like a slight break from AS to do some stuff for PL. Just like little things that would increase MRR. So I finished last night. And like basically the idea was like I'm gonna go down the content creation route for AS, and I was like PL would benefit from it, like a little video description stuff, and then also anyway, so I went down the route of like filming and then hiring editors on Upwork, and then posting the thing, and then made some funnels, packaging them into ads, running some split tests with like different homepages and copy, and then like a different funnel. So there's like a handful of things, and then there were like some other A/B tests that I ran and whatnot. Anyway, so that's done, and you could like check out the video on YouTube. But so the main thing that I wanted to mention though was that just basically how long it took. So basically that sprint was supposed to end on August 4th, and it's the 1st of September. So yeah, it was just like inefficient. Yeah, really inefficient. And so I'm gonna so a long time ago, so like basically when you run a startup, like you set up these 90-day cycles, and then there's like a pivot or persevere moment at the end of the 90-day cycle, like whether you've accomplished the traction roadmap goals. And like on September 7th, in a week from now, is when the first like when that milestone is, that 90-day milestone, and I'm definitely gonna miss it. And so what you're supposed to do is you pivot, or you just abandon the business, and you're like allowed one pivot, and then you do the pivot, and then you get another 90 days, and if you still fail after those 90 days, you should abandon the business. And like it's good because like maybe 180 days is insufficient, or maybe or whatever, but like it's good to time box, because if you don't time box, then you could like spend forever doing something that's just not going to work. So anyway, so the pivot in this case is not like strategy or like in product or whatever, or one of those business model canvases like sections. It's in execution. And we've already known that my execution has been garbage. But like in this moment of like strong motivation, I set up some pretty extreme things that should guarantee motivation. And I know that they should work because they've worked in the past. Like it's very uncomfortable and it sucks. But I know that it works, and we set it up, and I'm going to talk about that in a sec. There's one other thing that like I thought about tangentially, which like led to the motivation. So my best friend Leo has he was in Boulder basically, and we were talking, and like it occurred to me that Ash's traction roadmap idea, like for a business, could apply to life in general. And like this is pretty insightful, I think. So basically Ash's traction roadmap idea is that you say, for me to justify working on this business, how much money does it have to make, basically, right? Like if this business is going to make like 10 grand at most, like I should not work on this, right? And so what is the minimum amount that it needs to make for you to justify working on it? And then like if you account for the fact that like how much income you would get from a regular job, the number of hours you would spend, and then the fact that a business is inherently more risky, like that minimum criteria must be much higher. So suppose like $1 million ARR in year 3, and like you think about it in year 3, because that's when like the economics are more predictable. So, and then you work backwards from there. So you say, if in year 3, my minimum success criteria to justify working on this business is $1 million a year, then, and then like assuming like a standard growth rate, like at the end of year 2, I should be making this much. At the end of year 1, making this much. And then each of the months leading up to that, I should be making this much. And if I'm ever off target, then that means that I'm simply not meeting the minimum success criteria to justify working on this thing. And so you should pivot or abandon, right? And so, like, it occurred to me, like, you could apply that same concept in life.
Yeah, he was there. He was like, what's he like? Rolling up.
So the idea is, like, basically my problem, like, in this past month when I've been working on quote unquote PL, like only a few hours a day, is like, today was not a really efficient day, but there's always tomorrow, right? There's always more time, but there isn't. Like, you know, like, it seems like there is, but there's like an actual cost to that time that you're not thinking about concretely. And so if you actually set up this traction roadmap for your entire life, then you actually see that you're that the time matters. And if you're violating the time conditions, then things later on in the list are failing, and as a result, you're not meeting the minimum success criteria for your own life, right? So I was like, okay, let me just like think about this from first principles. And so I was like, okay, if I like map it from the end to the beginning, I was like, okay, let's say I assume I die at 50 or something, which, you know, maybe it's not necessarily the case, but like there are like some diseases out of your control, and then also like cognitive decline, and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, so if I'm going to die at 50, the immortality problem has to be solved by then. That's like a 10-year problem, like assuming AI, probably more than that. So good thing the 50-year-old thing has like some buffer. I'm like, okay, so I need to start working on the immortality problem by 40. And for me to do that, like, LT, which is like a different startup, the mega startup of all mega startups, has to have made like, I don't know, $500 million for funding. And then so LT is like a 5-year business, but then there's like a 4-year latency before, and like the details don't matter here. I'm just like glossing over it. I have this all written down like in detail. And also like there's big error bars on a lot of these numbers, but like what matters more, I think, is like having something concrete that you can point to, and like measure the cost of time, and you can update this like as you get more information. But anyway, so 5-year venture, the returns like come in like 4 years after starting, let's say like 4 years in. So like that's like a 9-year business, so I have to start LT by 31, and then to start LT I need to like build something valuable and like probably get like 10 million post sale or something to fund LT. And then so like suppose that's like a 4 or 5 year business, and then, you know, if 10 million post sale, let's say there's 30% equity, half of it is taxed, and then, you know, you can figure out the sale price and then 5x multiple, and then so this is the ARR you need. And then if that's the ARR you need in year 4, then like, you know, maybe it's like a triple from year 3 to year 4, and then maybe it's like a 10x from year 2 to year 3 and year 1 to year 2, etc. And then you can like track month by month starting from today to that year 1 mark. So I made the traction roadmap for my life, right? And so like if I'm not on target, then I'm not meeting the minimum success criteria for my own life, right? Which, like, you know, you just have to, like, something has to change. You have to change something to do it. Otherwise, like, you know, like your life is not worth that life that you've specified. Is basically not worth living because you've met the minimum. And like, why is that the thing? Because if any of the steps along the way fail, then like let's say there's like a delay in time, like because one of the earlier things failed or is taking too long, then like downstream of that is me not solving the mortality problem, and then I just die, and like that's not an option, right? It's just unacceptable. So I was like sufficiently motivated after having thought of that, and then I was like, okay, also the 3-month pivot point is coming. We have to change execution, and I was sufficiently motivated, so I was like, okay, let's go ahead and like do something extreme. So I have a list here of stuff I want to talk about. Okay, so one thing that I want to say is like, usually when people have like bursts of motivation, what they'll do is they'll use that burst of motivation to work on whatever they wanted to work on day one, and it'll work. And then on day two, they're still sufficiently motivated, and then on day two, they do the thing. And then day three, maybe it's a little less, but they still do it. Eventually, like the motivation wanes, and then they're back to where they were in the beginning, and they're not changing anything. So I think what's more correct is that you use that burst of motivation to modify your environment. You modify your environment to constrain or incentivize future actions to be what you want to be doing. And so without that surge of motivation, it might be hard to like change the environment in like this really drastic way, but in that intense motivation, you would. And then in the future, you no longer have to rely on your own motivation, because now the environment is the thing that's determining what you're doing. And so like a commitment device, for example, is one example. Okay, so specifically, so there's like, it's like three-pronged. Like one, now there's like this mental thought that if I don't succeed on this stuff, then I'm simply gonna die, which sucks, right? But then more real, there's two parts. So one in forfeit, which is like a commitment device, like you say, I'm gonna submit photo evidence that I did so-and-so by X time, and if I don't, then charge me money. So what I did was, so I said, so like to solve the execution thing, I was like, okay, I should work 10 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday at minimum. And I know that this model kind of works because like back in the day, like there was this period where I was working 12 hours a day every single day except Sundays for like months. And like that resulted as a result of sufficient motivation. And like I was talking to Leo, and like he convinced me to do this thing, and like at the end of every day I was like texting him like, 12 hours complete, whatever. And like the thought was like, if I ever miss a day, then I'll just like quit and get a regular job and never talk about entrepreneurship again, because it implies that I don't want it bad enough. Anyway, so point is like, I've done this thing before, I know that it works. And then like eventually just like failed because there was like no repercussions to my actions. I was like, yeah, I could just stop now. And then like the goal was like in 3 months to double revenue, and then I ended up quadrupling revenue in 2 months. And then like I like had all this money. I was like, there's no point in working, and like I didn't even care about the business I was really working on. It was just like to make money. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna fuck around. And then for like 9 months I just like had my early retirement. So there was like no repercussion for like actions. Like there's nothing that enforced me to like quit and get a regular job. But point is like, I know that model works where you work 12 hours a day every day, except Sundays where I was working for 4 hours. And it's a little intense. Like my sleep was suffering. So I think 10 is more manageable. So I have it for 10 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then 4 hours on Saturday and Sunday. And then, but that's just at minimum. I'll probably do more than that on some weekends. Okay, so the way to enforce that, so in forfeit, I made this thing where there's basically three pieces of evidence I have to submit by the end of the day at 11 p.m. The first is like by 11 p.m., which is like when my phone shuts off itself, and then so I can start my wind down routine for bed. I have to show proof that I did 4 hours of work. Evidenced by a photo of like my Pomodoro timer app or like some other indication of work. And if I don't, then I like $40 is automatically deducted from my bank account, and there's like no appeals allowed. Like no matter what the condition is, like I have to submit that. And then the same thing again. Oh, and then also like Leo gets a text. And then the second thing, also by 11, I have to submit proof that I did 8 hours of work that day, evidenced by like the Pomodoro timer. And then a third thing, or lose $40. And then the third one is submit evidence that I worked 10 hours that day. Otherwise, I lose $40. And then Leo gets text. And the reason why I broke it up into 3, like it sounds like why can't I just have 1, is because like if on days that I work 0 hours, I should be punished more than if I worked 8 hours and not the full 10. And so, so if I work 0 hours, I'm charged $120. If I work 8 hours and I miss that last 2 hour block, then I only get charged $40. So, and then I also have to, so it's those 3 things. And then I also have to submit photo evidence that I texted Leo telling him that I did 10 hours of work that day. So it's those 4 things, Monday through Friday, and then just one of those 4 hour blocks for Saturday and Sunday. And so very immediately, like there are stakes if I don't do the work. And like there's never a time that I would tell Leo that I did the 10 hours and actually didn't. Like I would never lie. So that like, you know, maybe there's like you can like hack your Pomodoro timer app and stuff, but that last thing where you're telling your friend at the end of the day that you did it, so that one I wouldn't cheat. So yeah, so that's like the immediate consequence. And like I set this forfeit up for the next year. So for the next year, I'm tied to this thing. I can't delete it. I made it so that there's no appeals. It's like completely strict. Like I can't even reach out to support and ask them to change it. Like I'm set, I'm dialed in, right? Okay, so that's like one of 2 stakes that I set up. The other, so that's like very near term, right? The monetary loss per day. The second one is, so I did this thing with Leo where if I so I have to tell him at the end of the day that I work 10 hours. If I miss it, if I ever miss it, and there's a buffer of, I'm allowed 4 misses per month. If a single month goes by where I miss 4 times, then he never talks to me again, right? And the point is like I'm not worthy of that friendship. And so that's like a very huge loss as well, right? So that's like a slightly more delayed giant stake. So yeah, so those 2 things are very immediate, and like that's like enough for me to like actually get this thing done and actually put in the time in. And like at this point, like I know everything I need to do. I just need to do it. Like, and like I'll figure it out along the way. That's fine. Like read along the way and stuff. I just need to do it. Like that's my number 1 problem. And like there's evidence that like from this past period that like that works. It leads to results. So I just know I need to do it. So yeah, so those are pretty big stakes. And like that's something that you would not normally set up unless you have, because that's a very big constraint. Like for the next year, you're tied to this thing where every single day you have to work 10 hours a day and you have to submit evidence. And if you don't, you get charged a bunch of money and you lose your best friend. And like very much downstream, like less clearly you end up dying, right? Like that's pretty, those are big constraints for you to impose on your environment that you would not normally do unless you have a gust of motivation. And so with that gust of motivation, I changed my environment so that in 2 weeks from now, when that motivation wanes from this idea, like the traction roadmap for your life, when that idea wanes, I'm still going to do the work because the environment that I set up a long time ago is now constraining me. Okay. And so I still think it's like there needs to exist a better solution. One that isn't working by positive punishment, but one is working by positive reinforcement. But anyway, that's another matter. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So now that I've done the pivot, now I've established what the pivot is. The new PSF deadline is, so it was supposed to be 1 week from now. I moved it 3 weeks later. So I like lost this month plus like the 2 weeks for PL. So like technically a month and a half. I just said, okay, let's just move the deadline 3 weeks forward to now. So that's like the first deadline 1 month from now, on October 1st. That's the 90-day adjusted 90-day cycle goal. where I have to acquire, like, it's either, we talked about this in the traction roadmap video, but two customers at $100 a month, or 10 customers at $20 a month. So that's the new goal to achieve by the end of the month. And then if by the end of that month I still have failed, then there has to be a fundamental pivot. And like I'm working 10 hours a day every day, pretty much in the 30 days leading up to that. So that should be a lot of time to make something happen and like find a strategic change. Okay, so there's 2 sprints till then. The first sprint, the goal is to basically use the funnel. So like, so I need to establish a funnel to like have a test bed for a variety of things, like customer conversations, problem discovery, making demos of like a software solution that I would potentially build. And if they're like, no, I wouldn't buy that, then like modifying the demo until I'm getting yeses. And then once I get the yeses, go ahead and build the thing. Or it could even be like a concierge MVP. So like I'm acting like a consultant basically, and like just trading time for money. And then doing that for a little bit to like learn the patterns, learn the special instances, and then generalize, like remove myself with a piece of software hardware or something. So establishing some sort of funnel for that. The best funnel that I think should work is like from some social channel like YouTube, Instagram, whatever, where you're just providing value and people are constant, and like the Russell Brunson concept, you're providing like 10x more value than the price that they're paying, which at the start of the funnel is $0. And then you're constantly moving them through the funnel, where at every step you're still providing 10x more value than the amount that they're paying. And so the top of the funnel is just me providing informational value, just like actual value, right? And then so making content on those channels, like making videos, talking about whatever, good videos, whatever, giving value. And then if organically it's not creating enough views, because then you can just package them into ads and then like forcibly serve it to more people. And then still, if no one's converting, then you make changes and stuff. So that's the top of the funnel. That's the intent for the top of the funnel, providing value through videos in content form or packaged into ads. And then where I move them to will change. So at the beginning, I think I'm just going to move them to like a Google Calendar link, and like the CTA is like, let's have a 20-minute one-on-one conversation where I like figure out, or where we talk about your number one blocker and we solve it. And then, so like I just end up having all these customer conversations, right? Problems like channel customer fit, customer problem fit. And then once like I have this, like ideally I have this like repeatable pipeline where people are coming in and then filling up my calendar, and then I can do whatever we can figure out whatever to do from there after having these conversations with people. And then so I think at first it's going to be just like talking, solving their problems, whatever. And then it's probably going to be doing like some sort of consulting concierge MVP solution. And then start selling some software. And when I say sell, like I'm not going to build the software and then sell it. I'm just going to give them a demo of the software that I haven't built yet. And then once like there's sufficient yeses, then I could build it. And then also like I've like written software in the past, so like PL for example. So so giving free software as lead magnets. So that's the funnel. So that's the goal. And like the goal at the end of the 90-day cycle is like that number of customers. And so like I wrote out how many. So basically I need like 5 to 10 conversations per day, assuming like a 10% conversion rate from conversation to a purchase. And then assuming that there's like a 1% conversion rate from views to booking an appointment, then I need 100x that views per day. I didn't write it down here, but whatever. So basically figured out all the leading measures to get to the lagging measure goal. And then I guess I have to figure out to get that X many views per day, how much content I have to be producing, but probably I need to be producing like 1 a day or something. So that's the yeah, so that's the strategy. So in summary, like, yeah, our execution sucks, which we knew. We hit the time box pivot moment where something has to change. And then that plus this other thought that I had led to a period of motivation to like forcibly solve my execution problem in a non-scalable way, but in a way that should work in the short term with this like painful system. Forfeit and Leo and stuff. And then now that we have that execution problem, the strategy that execution gets applied to is building a funnel from some social channel, providing value, leading to appointment calendar booking where I can have conversations and then just change where the funnel leads to based on whatever makes sense the most for the business then. So yeah, that's the goal. And I just want to reiterate this life traction roadmap thing. Maybe the example that I gave was a little weird for most people, but one way of thinking about it is you can say let's say by the age of 35 you want to get married or something, and then maybe you need to have been dating someone for I don't know, 2 or 3 years or whatever. So then by 31, 32, you want to have found someone, and then to find someone maybe you need this many months of dating and or this many years of dating, and then or meeting people, and then also the conversion rate from meeting someone to eventually dating them maybe is 10%. 10% of the people that you meet maybe you end up dating, or maybe it's less, maybe 1 to 10% based on whatever your thing is. So then you figure out the number of leads that you need to get into the system to eventually accomplish this goal of being married at 35, right? And so if you're in your late 20s or whatever age, you're 25 or even you're younger, whatever, you could say not today, I'm not gonna bother or whatever, right? But now that you have this map, this roadmap, you can actually see the cost of that decision, and you could say, if I'm not hitting these targets, and as a result of me not hitting these targets, I'm not going to accomplish this goal of getting married or whatever. So it applies to anything. So you can think about your future life and what you want your future life to consist of, and then make that a precise goal, and then work backwards, and then measure and then determine all the leading measures to get to all those goals, assuming some average conversion rate, some reasonable order of magnitude, 1%, 10%, 0.1% kind of conversion rates. So I think it's a pretty foundational, fundamental, important concept. So for me, basically all the personal stuff came from money, probably. If you solve money, then the other stuff kind of gets solved. So I just make my life traction roadmap centered around monetary goals. So yeah, another thing I wanted to mention was me doing the 10-hour thing. I have no problem. It requires a lot of sacrifice, right? You have to sacrifice a lot of stuff to be that constrained. And what made it easier for me to set up this thing is just I had my retirement already. I probably for 2 years broken up, but the biggest one was for a year I car camped through the national parks for 9 months, and I lived decades basically. Subjective time is so long, but I lived so much life. There was so much consumption in that period. And I remember Leo was telling me I went back to my office that I quit from, and he was in that 1 year you probably lived more life than all of those people in that building combined. And I was you're probably right. And so yeah, I don't mind sacrificing, because I've basically done all the consumption. All the consumption I would sacrifice now is really not that bad, and I want to be producing anyway. So definitely makes that easier. So having a little period of that is maybe useful, but okay. Well, anyway, this video is long enough. Okay, see ya. So yeah, in 2 weeks I'll report back. All right, bye.